Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on the News You Can Use, the hashtag CrossBorder Connection Show. My name is Alma Peralta, and I am your host. This program is brought to you by the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and is sponsored by the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Once again, thank you for joining us this morning. Before we continue with our special guest today, I would like to introduce myself to you and tell you a little bit more about my background and experience here at the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I've been with the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for 3 years as Director of Operations and also working with international relations and international trade. I have a master's degree in business administration and a bachelor's in economics. I also studied languages at the University of Arizona, where I minored in Portuguese and Italian. Today I have the honor of introducing you to our special guest, Leah Márquez Peterson, who is the President and CEO of the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and its affiliate chambers, the Ambos Nogales Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Douglas Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and the Sierra Vista Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Leah has been with the THCC for 8 years, where she has grown the chamber from 300 members to over 1,800 members and has pioneered the 3 affiliate chambers. Her advocacy for international trade has taken her to Washington, D.C. to advocate for our business community in Arizona. Leah, thank you for being here today and taking time from your busy schedule to give us an update on your most recent trip to Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Alma, for having me on your Cross-Border Connections show. I'm very excited about the opportunity to be able to speak to our members and to the community about the work we're doing at the Chamber. So just a few weeks ago, I traveled to Washington, D.C., and people often ask, what am I doing there and how can it better the growth or the economic conditions of our member businesses? And this particular week was very important. As you know, our country is in the midst of a national debate around NAFTA and around the importance of trade to so many of our businesses and the industries in which we work with in Arizona and Sonora. So I attended the U.S.-Mexico Border Conference while I was there, hosted by the Wilson Center Mexico Institute. They brought together a compilation of economic development groups, educational institutions, the Border Trade Alliance, politicians, different folks that came together that talked about the work that was being done in trade in their various states, and also their advocacy efforts that were happening at the national level. Interestingly, our own Governor Ducey from Arizona was the keynote speaker at the luncheon, and he also participated in some of the panels. And I will tell you, he was such a star in that environment. Governor Ducey spoke about the importance of trade to Mexico and to Arizona. Mexico is Arizona's #1 trading partner. I had a lot of comments from colleagues in states near us, Texas, California, and others that talked about the excitement they had when they saw just the passion that our Governor Ducey held and the leadership positions that he had taken in our state of Arizona. The next day, many of those organizations gathered in something we are informally calling the One Border Coalition, or hashtag One Border. The One Border Coalition was formed about, I'd say, a year and a half ago, and it is a group of economic development and educational institutions along the 10 borders of the U.S.-Mexico border. So the 4 states in the United States, the 6 in Mexico. We gather about every other month, and we've seen a lot of leadership from the San Diego Regional Chamber, certainly from being supported by the Wilson Center Mexico Institute, from El Paso Juarez area. In fact, just recently we hosted a meeting in Tucson just about a month and a half ago for folks to gather in Arizona, supported by Texas, California, New Mexico, and the states in Mexico, to talk about the importance of trade. We focus certainly on the data in the One Border Coalition, but what's even more important is how we're going to advocate on behalf of trade to the center of our country. How do we talk to Michigan and Ohio and Indiana and other states that are dramatically impacted by trade, but may not be hearing that message as we negotiate the modernization in NAFTA. Our chamber supports the modernization in NAFTA. It's a trade agreement between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico that is almost 23 years old, and if you think 23 years ago, we really didn't have the prevalence of internet. We didn't have as many service industries that are engaged in trade now, so certainly needs to be modernized. What's a priority for our chamber today and in these conversations is that our industries and our leaders are part of the conversation, that we are able to ensure that the various industries that are dominant and the small businesses that support trade are part of the NAFTA modernization conversation. So at this same meeting, the One Border Coalition meeting in DC, we had the opportunity to meet with the U.S. Trade Representative for the Western Hemisphere. He is the office or the area in which the federal government was gathering public opinion. Our chamber had submitted public opinion, many of our members had, a lot of the members of the One Border Coalition had also done that. And so we wanted to find out where was that feedback going, what were their action steps, what did they plan to do with that, and how could we continue to bring messages and stories of business impact of NAFTA. So very, very interesting meeting to participate in. The other thing I wanted to mention was this conversation related to NAFTA when I was in Washington, D.C. wasn't limited to just these conferences. We are engaging in conversations with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce as well as the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and both of their presidents are at the table. They're involved in some very important meetings, and we wanted to make sure as a border state in Arizona, we were able to provide that information to them.
Leah, thank you once again for sitting down with me and sharing your advocacy efforts for international trade in Washington, D.C. Again, thank you to our sponsor, the USHTC Foundation. Please join us every Wednesday and Friday from 10 a.m. to 10:15 for our #CrossBorder Connection show.